So you're there in March of 2003.
Yeah, I was weapons company, so we were assigned to the Humvees. We weren't in the Amtraks. As a weapons company, I was a javelin gunner, and so anti-tank. I also did breaching for the unit as well, doing dynamic breaching into buildings and stuff like that. Being in the Humvees, we had a different sort of view of the war. Instead of being in the Amtraks, we had a little bit more independence, a little bit more on our ownness. And I appreciated that. For us, the war started. I mean, we knew we started loading up with real hand grenades, real ammunition a couple days before, or 24 hours before we pushed off. And that was game time. When I started unpacking the Javelin missiles from their boxes and stuff like that, I knew we were going to get into something. The war kicks off, March 20th, and we get into the Ramallah oil fields. That was our mission, was to prevent them from busting up the wellheads and creating all that pollution. And
like they had.
Yeah, we anticipated we were going to try that. We went in, and I remember taking the left flank of Alpha Company, and we were engaging some Iraqis that were hiding out, but mostly just protecting the Alpha Company as they cleared some of the trenches and bunkers that they had set up. And it was kind of ragtag. You could see trash everywhere, uniforms everywhere. And I remember 500 meters off to my right, the incident where Lieutenant Childers was killed. And to me, that was a pivotal moment. It got real quick, seeing that and knowing that we just lost an American. It took a while for me to process. I still process it today.
Yeah.
But that sort of set the tone for the rest of the battalion in our march up to Baghdad. The deceitfulness in which Lieutenant Childers was killed was wrong. They came out waving white flags in their Jeep, and I guess one guy in the back decided he didn't want to quit, and he fired off rounds, and he got lucky and struck Lieutenant Childers, and unfortunately he didn't make it. And so for the rest of the push up to Baghdad, we were pretty aggressive. We weren't messing around. Although I will say one of the rewarding things was meeting some Iraqis that were really grateful for us being there. We were treated as liberators, and a lot of people showed and expressed a genuine thank you and appreciation for us being there. But yeah, that was a tough one. And then we marched we had different battles all over Iraq. Saddam's Bridge or Saddam's River, Saddam's Canal, I don't know which one it's called. We fought on that. It was a trying time, and I'd say OIF 1 really showed me what character was about, grit and determination. A lot of boring hours up, but lots of hard nights driving and NVGs and stuff like that, trying to push up north to take Baghdad. And then taking Baghdad, that was a fight. The whole battalion got into a big brawl when we came into the city, and we fought like hell. We repelled some of the Fedayeen fighters that were trying to overrun our position. And then, we took over Saddam's palace, one of his palaces, multiple, along the Tigris River. And my seniors, I give all the credit to them. They were war fighters from the get-go. They'd never been in combat, but they all wanted us to be war fighters, and they made us war fighters. For me, when I got to the fleet and we started doing some of the life-saving training, like putting IV needles in each other and doing that sort of stuff, and being like, wow, I'm gonna have to learn this. I need to know this because my buddy might be dependent on this. Practicing tourniquets and stuff like that. That's really when it started to say, okay, we can't fuck around. We need to be proficient in our jobs. And that was really stressed on us. It was like, hey, when you're off work, be off work, but when we're working, we're training, and we're going to be focusing on the guys, the people above you. You need to know their jobs, and they need to know your job. And you need to be able to work any weapon system that we carry. And that was really stressed upon us. And we came we gelled as a platoon really well. And we had some unique opportunities. We went out to a Navy SEAL camp to train on California. And in California, that was an amazing training package we did. We were kind of away from the battalion, and it was just our platoon commanders, and they really showed us the trust and fidelity in us that we could, take these Humvees out and be tactically proficient and be deadly. But yeah, it was game time when we were in Kuwait and we started unboxing all the ammo. I realized, like, okay, we're really doing this. We're not calling this off. Because it was always this anticipation. Get to the starting line, get to the starting end. Oh, wait. We're not. There's somebody negotiating with someone.
Right. It's not really going to happen.
Yeah. You're always playing devil's advocate to yourself. You're like, it's not going to happen. Something's going to intervene. Something's going to happen. And up until that time, there was always talks of him, giving, coming out of the country and giving control to someone else. There was that talk, but never happened. But and then, like I said, after that first deployment, we got back in, I think, July of 2003. And by December 2003, we were deployed again. Redeployed to Okinawa first for training and equipment. And then that following spring, we were back in Iraq and fighting for the Battle of Fallujah at that time. I remember, being the senior guy on deck with my Marines, and we also had a good NCOs. A lot of NCOs had come back from either being out of the Marine Corps, wanting to fight, and they came in. So we had some NCOs be our leadership as well for OAF too. That was from 2004. I'd say February to June 2004. We were there. Yeah. And it was very kinetic. Our platoon was Task Force Red Cloud under Lieutenant Glover at the time. And he was a very well-respected leader, and I had the utmost fidelity in him. He was a consummate warrior, and everybody in the battalion knew it, and he had the awards to show for it. And I was really happy to have him as a platoon commander because I knew he was going to take care of his boys, and he always did. But he was also, he had standards, and if you didn't meet them, you were going to pay for not meeting those standards, and I respected that. Sergeant Saparsky was my vehicle commander in the second deployment. And he had been a machine gunner in 2-7 and gotten out, and then after the war kicked off, he rejoined, and he came to us, and he was a really good leader. The thing he taught me the most was whatever job you have, you do it to your best ability. If it's mopping floors, you mop the best floors. If it's taking the trash out, you take the trash out the best way you can. You just be good and be prideful of what you're doing, whatever it is. And that still, to this day, lingers with me. Saparsky was cold as ice in the ambushes we got in. We were the QRF of the battalion most of the time as Red Cloud. The weapons company was tasked with most of the QRF. We kind of rotated platoons, but it seems like Red Cloud always got a lot of the missions. While we were in Fallujah doing the offensive operations, we actually got a trap mission on April 13th, 2004.
What is that?
Trap mission is a tactical recovery of aircraft personnel. Okay. The last real ones would probably be Kosovo. You'd heard about it, or you've seen those movies where down pilot is. What had happened was outside of Fallujah, a Special Forces Pavlo CH-53 was flying low over farm fields south of Fallujah, and they took an RPG to the cockpit, killed or badly injured the pilot, I believe. They fly in pairs, so the wingman was able to come down, extract personnel in sensitive equipment and serialized gear, but they didn't. There was still a down helicopter there, so we were tasked to go find it in the middle of the night, and we find it. We start scrubbing it for serialized gear because we don't want this helicopter to be used for propaganda on like Al Qaeda or Al Jazeera or whatever. And we hold up a blocking position, real muddy, ruddy fields. We're in the middle of nowhere. We had to actually have the AC-130 Spectre gunships point us onto the target with their IR lights and stuff. Get there, scrub everything. We sit there till daybreak, and at daybreak, we get bracketed with mortars. So we start shifting our vehicles around, start moving around, trying to, make us hard targets. And in front of us, our Humvee highback. Now, the equipment we had in Iraq, those first two deployments was less than standard, I'd say. We make do with what we got, and we did, and we weren't. I had never seen an armored Humvee until after those 2 deployments, basically. We didn't have any armor in our Humvees in Iraq that time. We had big sappy plates doors that we hung on our doors, and we had sandbags in our Humvee as a protection. So looking back on it, I don't think you could pay me to do that again. Yeah, young and dumb, and those follies are okay. We can recover from them. But yeah, nowadays couldn't catch me dead in that. But it's all we had, and it was what we did best with. The morning of April 13th, we take some casualties. In front of us, a mortar landed right between our Humvee and a high-back Humvee, and the back of the high-back Humvee is exposed. So immediately some Marines get peppered with shrapnel, and we have casualties. Lieutenant Glover at the time was like, hey, we have casualties. Told, higher up, was like, hey, we have casualties. We're getting bracketed with mortars. We can't stay in this position for long. We were going to stay out there for a wrecking crew to come out and pick up that helicopter to take it away. Unfortunately, when we took casualties, that became a bridge too far for us. So we weren't going to sit around and wait for that. So he called up and had them, I think they blew it. I think they dropped ordnance on it from jets or something like that after we were out of the area. We take casualties, and Lieutenant Glover makes a call for us to extract and get out of here. And let's go to the casualty collection point and let's get these Marines treated. And as we're on the muddy farmland, we get on the hardball road and we start going up. I was in the lead vehicle. Me and Saparsky were always lead vehicle. Just the way we got tasked. Even in Invasion, I was one of the lead vehicles. That was a point of pride for me. But yeah, we get on the hardball, we start going, and we're in a environment where the enemy can hide really easily. It's tall reeds and ditches for canals and stuff like that. So the enemy is there, but they're very hard to see. But we can see their muzzle flashes. You can see like the disturbance from their firing. And it becomes quickly upon us that we're in an ambush and we have to fight our way through it. As we're fighting through this ambush, we come to a little podunk town, and the podunk town wants to fight with us too. And we are guns up, firing away. All of us are shooting. At one point, our vehicle, we lost our fill for our crypto, for our radios, which are, synchronized and all that sort of stuff. Losing that means we can't talk to the rest of the platoon, so we have to use our other comms to communicate. We get through the little town. We tell Glover, hey, we lost our fill. He's like, all right, I'll take lead. And we have to go back through the town because we missed a turn over a bridge that would let us get onto the highway and get our casualties out of the area. As we're turned around, we come back through that town and we fight our way through there. And at that point, Boy's Humvee is hit with an RPG. He's up there on a pintle mount with his 249 saw, and the round severed his femoral artery in his leg, and he immediately went down. And all of our Humvees at this point, my Humvee had 3 flats. We had an RPG that hadn't detonated, but had struck us and was literally bouncing around in the back through the sheet metal, just was kind of stuck there. It was a rough firefight. I mean, I went through 16 magazines of ammunition, and I wasn't on burst. I was firing single shots. We expended a lot of ordnance, our platoon, in that ambush. We get on the hardball, and Boy's Humvee and the Humvee with the other casualties were told to, hey, push them out, let them get ahead of us. The rest of us are going to have to limp home back to the Cloverleaf where the casualty collection point was. And I have to finally get up to the casualty collection point, and it becomes apparent that Boy didn't make it. But it wasn't official yet. They're still saying they're working on him. We get down, we had taken a soda factory in Fallujah as our operating for command. And that was where we kind of would go there to resupply. We had all the mechanics and stuff like that to work on our vehicles. So we go back there, and that's when Glover lets us know. He circles us up and tells us that Boy didn't make it. And that was hard, but he immediately wants us back in the fight. And that afternoon, we get back into the fight. We refit, regroup. I had Saddam's revenge that night before, so I had stayed up all night puking and messing myself. So I was pretty exhausted. I took 5 IV bags to get me back into a state where I could fight. And we immediately respond as a QRF, and I applaud Lieutenant Glover for this, for getting us back into the fight. Didn't let us dwell, didn't let us think about what we just had been through. And Bravo Company had lost an Amtrak past our lines in Fallujah. It had gotten ambushed, and there was a platoon of guys that had held up in a house that was getting attacked and almost possibly overrun. So as QRF, we mount up and we go out there to respond to that. We link up with Bravo Company's command, and we kind of have our dismounts foot patrol to that house and help clear while we bring in Abrams tanks. The reason we need that Abrams tanks is that track is blown. There's a dead Marine inside. And again, we didn't want the propaganda or anything to be used against us for, any other purposes. So Lieutenant Glover, I remember this, he was, we had the tanks with us, and they're like, oh, it's getting low light. We need to head back. And he's like, you're in a tank. We're staying and rigging this thing for tow. There's a dead Marine in that vehicle, and we're not leaving it. And so we rigged that tank for tow, and we pull that. The Abrams brings that track back out of that area, and that was another hellish firefight. We all got some that day. Yeah, that was April 13th. That was a long day for us. We retrograde back to the soda factory, and that's us for the day, luckily. No more missions that evening and stuff like that. But I tell that day because it was impactful, to say the least. Boyd was loved, well respected, and just a good Marine. Like a good Marine, we all get in trouble together, and he was no innocent Marine, but we always had a good time with Boy, and he was the life of a party. And to lose him that day was hard. And I reference that day because I think it showed me a lot of character of the guys I served with. And so Ski was that whole day cold as ice on the radio, even in the ambush. Even as we were taking fire, he was firing on comms, cold as ice, telling LT what we were seeing, what we were going through. Even when the comms went down, he didn't lose his shit. Backup comms went up, and he was rocking and rolling. And I look to Ski a lot for that, guiding North Star Light under his leadership. That was the second deployment. It sucked. That really changed the war for me. Handing the city over to those Iraqi people that didn't know which way to point the rifle, didn't know which was the shooting side of the rifle, didn't seem like it was right for us. Or we could have taken that city, we had them on the back, and politics came in and crushed us. And that's when I knew things for me personally, the war was not what it should have been or what it was we were told. And from that on, I deployed my third time because of my buddies, not because of the mission. I deployed because everybody else I knew was going. And so that's why I made it a point to go on that third deployment, because my boys were going and I'm not going to leave them behind. But for me, Fallujah really showed me that we weren't there to win the war. I don't know what the fuck we were doing there, but it wasn't to win. And unfortunately, that really has soured me over the years. But it is what it is.
It seems like, we can go back to Vietnam and even the first Gulf War. There's the debate where should we have just gone to Baghdad and finished it, and we didn't.
Yeah.
It seems like politics gets in the way of America winning these wars all the time, and then guys like you have to bear the burden of that. Doesn't seem fair. I don't know why politicians never learn. Maybe it's because a lot of them guys making a decision were never on the other side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at the time, I know Senator Webb, him and his son. I actually went to school after I got out of the Marines with his son for a little bit. Unfortunately, the people that make those big decisions usually aren't the ones sending their sons and daughters. Yeah. I love the military. I love what the opportunity it gave me, but I also know that the military targets a certain demographic, especially in the Marine Corps. They target a specific it's a young force. I think the average age in the Marine Corps is like 20 versus like 26 for the Army and stuff like that. Yeah, you know, had they had to send their sons and daughters off, I think they'd make different decisions. I don't think we might have even been in that war, you know, you're realizing what is it for? What was it all for? That's something I daily battle with. But like I said, I make it worth it because I get to see my boys. And if they weren't here, I don't know if I'd be here, you know. I really appreciate having my friends here and having them that I can call on at any time. And even if it's just to check on each other, we're there for each other.
Yeah.
Our unit is very, very tight. And I think that's because of what we all kind of went through. That cauldron of war and all the trials and tribulations associated with it. Coming home, trying to refine your purpose after taking the uniform off, all that stuff. We all went through it. And some of us are doing better than others, but we're doing. And that's, I think, the big thing I have to take away with me is the guys I served next to left and right, we at least show up for each other when we can, and we try to show up for each other.
Your third deployment would have been what year?
That was 2005.
Had anything changed?
Yeah.
What changed, especially from an equipment standpoint?
Yeah, so fully armored Humvees then.
Okay.
After, in June 13, 2004, our Humvee got hit with two 155 artillery shells. Blew our Humvee up. It was such a large explosion that the Humvee behind us, two of their guys got concussions from the explosion. I don't remember a whole lot. I took some shrapnel to the back of my head. My driver, Peter, he'd been shot in Fallujah in an ambush, and he got blown up with us in the Humvee too. So he's got two Purple Hearts with us. That was like our unarmored Humvee days. Ramadi, total different ball game. The dumb enemies, they've all been killed off. The wily, cunning killers, they had all stuck around or learned from their buddies' mistakes. So Ramadi was a kinetic city. It was very, if you left the wire, you knew you were going to get an IED, an ambush, or a complex attack.
The enemy's evolving.
Yes, yes. And their armaments are getting heavier, their IEDs are getting bigger. And that was the year that I started seeing those fully armored Humvees you thought you were invincible in get blown to pieces with EFPs, and that's explosively formed penetrator rounds. And they were killing our guys with those. And to see that evolve so quickly was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Were we keeping up with that?
No.
The MRAPs hadn't come out.
No, the MRAPs hadn't come out. There's another 2-3 years, I think, before they came up. So no, we were. I mean, they had platter charges. They knew what they were doing, and they took our guys out when they could, and we got them too. You know, we fought them toe to toe. Yeah. For me, that third deployment, I had been away from the unit. I'd been working with a few other Marines doing marksmanship training, and came back to the unit just in time to deploy. For myself, that January, I had a really evasive surgery on my stomach. So I had a my left lat muscle cut in half, and my 6th and 7th rib shaved down, and my left lung deflated, and my stomach tied around itself for acid reflux, real evasive surgery. And while I was home on convalescent leave, I got into a bar fight and broke my hand. So I deployed with my right hand in a cast, and I couldn't even carry my own gear because I had no lat muscle on my left side. So that was brutal. I had to have my boots carry all my gear for me, and I deployed like that. But there was no other. To me, it was only looking back on. I'm hopefully wiser now, know not to do that. But to me, that was the only way I was going to go there, and that's fine with me. I eventually cut the cast off my hand and went on patrol with Ski again. Yeah. Ski was the whole reason I went on that third deployment. Was Ski asked me to go, and I said, "Will I be with you? In your vehicle?" He's like, "Sure will." I was all right. I'm with you, because I had that much trust and fidelity in Ski to watch over me, to make sure that I'm gonna be taken care of. And he always looked out for us. He really did. So that deployment was hard though. Coming back to the deployment, the ROEs had changed, the atmospherics have changed. If you shot your weapon, you were going to have to do some paperwork. You know, it just it was just a different ball game there. It wasn't the Wild Wild West that we had been to earlier. But yeah, that deployment was tough, but it was a short one for me because I was getting out in August, and all the third timers, as we call ourselves, we kind of had been shown, hey, you guys want to stay, extend, and we're like, no, you guys are treating us worse than the boots. And of the first 5 KIAs, 3 of them were third timers. And for me, that was a sign. And I asked Ski, I said, hey, Ski, do you want me to stay? I'll stay. And he told me, he yelled at me. He's like, no, get the fuck out of here. You've done your job. And for that, I'm grateful. I don't know what would happen after that. But leaving was tough. And then hearing about Herrera, his passing was really hard to hear about. And knowing the guys were taking casualties while I was literally back here was tough. But I came, as soon as they got home, I went out there for the Marine Corps Ball and saw them again, which was really nice. But yeah, those 3 deployments were distinct and character building, I would say.
One of the things that, you know, all the service branches bust each other's balls. I'm in the Air Force, and Greg over here is in the Army, you're a Marine. But
I did the Nasty Girls for a little bit.
I will say this, I do envy the Marines and that camaraderie that they have. And you go to the Marine Corps Museum, I don't know if you've been there or not.
Oh, yeah.
They've got the sayings on the top. They've got, Army generals, complimenting the Marine Corps. What makes Marines different? What do you think that is?
Demographically, they're younger, dumber. Honestly, I think it's the challenge that the Marine Corps puts forward to its youth of this nation. They say, hey, Army's saying, hey, you give us a sign-on bonus of $50,000 and free education. Marine Corps didn't promise me nothing. I recruited 6 of my buddies to join the Marine Corps with me. I got free dress blues out of it at boot camp. That was it. I think the Marine Corps is distinct in that it has this young warrior mentality, and it's not an artificial warrior mentality, which I saw the Army try to do over the 20 years of OIF. It's ingrained into everything we do from the ground up, and I think that really appeals to a certain demographics within our society, and that's why the Marine Corps never has problems recruiting. For the most part, it can hit its numbers because it knows its demographic. It knows who to target. People that want to get away from their podunk town, want to change it, want to challenge. People want to leave their broken homes. Their families aren't right. Sadly, that the military, that's where it recruits. That's its honeypot. I know that. But for the Marine Corps, I think as soon as you step up on those yellow footprints, everything changed. And you suffer together, you do the miserable things together, and it makes you better. I don't know how many times I've lost toenails hiking in Pendleton, with weapon systems that are heavier than me almost. And you're doing it because the guy to your left is suffering with you, and he's going to take it after you had to turn with it. And it's bred in its training. I think it's bred in the lore, the education we get from the Marine Corps. Everything centers around that warrior and the infantryman especially. Our focus is, every Marine's a rifleman, but like the infantryman, that's what you're there to support. And for me to be an infantryman was a point of pride, and I really enjoyed it, and I loved making do with less. Knowing that the Army had all this budget and all these new toys and all that stuff, it just made us more proficient with our little crappy stuff and make it work for us. We're going to jerry-rig it, we're going to make it work. And that's what I loved. I loved seeing Marines that could adapt and overcome and just with bubble gum and duct tape figure something out and make our Humvees work, or get equipment that we weren't supposed to have. National Guard didn't have Firewatch in Kuwait, so they didn't guard their tools so well. But
what do you want people, somebody might see this, who knows? What do you want them to know about your service and your fellow Marines? What do you want the takeaway to be?
I would want them to know that the Marines from 1st Battalion, 5th Marines are brothers, and we came together through some of the hardest times in our country's wars, and we fought battles with honor. We were gentlemen to the women. You know, we didn't do anything crazy, and it's just an honor to know that the Marine Corps, we are a part of the Marine Corps' history. When people look up Fallujah, they're going to know it's 1-5. When they look up the first casualty war, they're going to know it's Lieutenant Childers from 1-5. Our history, we've helped form it, and now we bring on a legacy for the next Marines. And those younger Marines, I know they look up to us. And that's pretty cool to see that, but also it gives me a chance to impart some wisdom and let them know that, hey, you guys got the task now. You guys take care of it. And they're more than competent. They're better trained, better equipped than what we were. And I'm excited to see where the Marine Corps goes from now.
Well, Wade, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, thank you very much for sharing your story. It's important to get it out. A lot of guys just don't want to talk about it for obvious reasons. But I applaud you for doing it because it's important that people know the cold, hard facts about war and what you guys went through. More importantly, though, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Dennis.
It's highly appreciated.
Thank you, Dennis. It doesn't do me any good to hold on to these stories. The families of the guys we lost, just Americans in general need to know these stories so they can understand what sacrifice is for me and my buddies. Yeah. And so they can appreciate, hopefully, what we did for each other. So yeah, it doesn't do it no good to hold on to stories. Tell them and let people understand what sacrifice is to me. So thank you.